Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about a recent study that came out that showed that kids who played video games for up to 3 hours a day had better cognitive performance than kids who didn't. I've seen this study shared on multiple accounts, and I think that the results are getting misinterpreted, in my opinion. So I wanted to go through what they actually looked at, my thoughts on the study, and questions that I have, as well as concerns that I have about the way that people are interpreting these results. So basically, what this study was is that they looked at a group of 2,000 kids ranging from 9 to 10 years old, and they looked at their video gaming habits. And what the study found was that kids who played video games for 3 hours a day had better cognitive performance on things like working memory compared to kids who didn't. And the authors of the study had a theory that, maybe that, playing these video games helped kids to improve their impulse control and their, again, other cognitive skills that were measured in the study. And the thing that is getting misinterpreted is whether or not this is a causal relationship. And really, based on the methodology of this study, it was not. So this study did not have a true experimental design with a control group. What it did have was that they looked at a group of kids and it looked at their behaviors after the fact, meaning that they looked at what the kids were already doing. They didn't actually design an experiment where they did an intervention and measured before and after. And in order to be able to determine that one variable caused another, you have to use a true experimental design, and this study did not. So that means that we know that there was an association between the length of time that the kids played video games versus the kids that didn't. So we know that cognitive performance and kids who said that they played video games for 3 hours a day, there was a relationship. So there was some kind of a correlation there, but we don't know why there's a correlation. You can't determine that there is a causal relationship when you don't do a true experimental design, where you're actually designing a study up front and then putting participants into one condition versus another, and then comparing them. This study did not do that. So we know the what, we don't know the why. So we know that, yes, kids in the group that played video games more often did have higher scores on certain cognitive performance indicators, but we don't know why. So that means that we can't necessarily say that the video gaming actually is what caused that difference. There's a chance that kids that already were stronger in those skills were more likely to play video games for 3 hours a day. The other thing that we don't know is what else were they doing. So for example, kids who play video games all the time and they don't engage in any other activities, we know that that is associated with issues with mental health, depression, things like that. The people who did this study did say that there was a higher prevalence of mental health and depression with those issues with the group that played video games more, but it wasn't statistically significant. But the main thing to take away there is that while we know that there was some kind of relationship, we don't necessarily know why they were choosing to engage with the games in this way. And also, we don't know what other activities they might have been participating in that could have been building their cognitive performance. We don't know if it was because of the video games. And the other thing is that a lot of times when kids have conditions, like ADHD, for example, they might tend to only want to play video games and not do those other things that can improve their cognitive performance, can improve their communication skills. So they may have a harder time putting them down. So there's a chance that these kids who were, yes, spending a lot of time playing video games were able to do it in a way that where they play games for this length of time, put them down, and then also are able to switch to other tasks that would improve their cognitive performance. So if they already have good impulse control, they might be able to play video games for a set amount of time, but put it down and self-regulate in that way, which again, if you have a hard time putting the games down, then it's going to be harder for you to engage in other tasks that are going to build your cognitive performance. So again, there's so many questions here. The other question that I would have is that, I know that a lot of times people like to be absolutist about it, like video games are bad, social media is bad. But yes, there are certain benefits that come from things like social media or using different online tools. A lot of times kids do need some element of digital literacy. So what we really don't know, or at least what I don't know from reading this study, the article that was freely available online, is what were the features of those games? I'm guessing that there are certain games or things that you can do online that might be better than others depending on their features. A lot of the games that are available for kids are, very overstimulating and not very good from a neurological standpoint. And then others might be a little bit better where they do teach kids specific skills because they're designed to do that. So without really knowing what kind of video games they were playing, it's kind of hard to know what actually needs to be there. What I would want to know is what are the actual features and the skills that were being addressed during these games? How are they set up? Because what that's going to help us do is figure out how to design activities, whether it be through video games or whether it be through other activities that are going to help us to build cognitive skills in kids. Saying just video gaming as a blanket statement really doesn't tell us much. If they're playing games where they're doing things like stealing cars, is that healthy? Or what if they're doing other games where they're solving puzzles and, doing, designing, I don't know, different, there's a lot of games where they have to design neighborhoods and, do different projects as far as, architecture, and that do involve some complex planning. So I don't really know, is one better than another? I think we need a little bit more information here before we just say, all right, video games are okay. So I do think that the authors of this study did say that, yes, we saw that there was a relationship. No, it's not a causal relationship. We can't say that video games improve cognitive performance because that's not what the actual study said. It just says that there's a relationship. We don't know why. We don't know if kids who already have those skills are more likely to engage in those behaviors, or if those behaviors actually cause those skills. It's still a chicken or egg debate here. So I would caution people from saying that video games are good for cognitive development, because that study did not say this. We don't have definitive evidence that that is true. I would encourage people to actually read studies like this, not just read the headlines, and actually look at the fine print and the methodology of studies like this to actually learn what they're saying.